Was poppin', everybody? I am back. Unfortunately for the three people who still watch anything that gets posted here, a new video. I know, surprising. It's been probably 4 months now. But rest assured, I am back, and no, I'm not going to have a consistent upload schedule just because people say I should. Nobody really tells me that I should, but I think I should, but I won't. Anyways, enough said, onto the video. So I want to talk about this game because I'm genuinely infatuated with it. I have played nothing but Dead Cells for the last month, and that isn't even a joke. At the time of recording, it's more like 2 months, but you know. Now, as far as experiencing the entire game, I haven't. So don't expect this to be an hour-long video about complexities and minute details, although it probably will be the longest review I've made so far. At the time of recording this, I have played Rise of the Giant. At the time of writing, I had not. At the time of recording, I still haven't beaten it. That being said, here's my review of Dead Cells. Dead Cells is a 2D roguelite action platformer with elements of the Souls and Metroidvania subgenres. You have to fight your way across an island where everything has collapsed after a tyrannical ruler and an unknown disease have ravaged a seemingly prosperous society. You play as the Beheaded, a failed alchemical experiment with a fragmented and confusing backstory. Each DLC continues to expand upon the game's narrative with new enemies, levels, bosses, and lore. Being as not much can be said for graphics, I'm going to talk about level design instead. The game's ambiance is wonderful. It makes you feel small, like you're an unwelcome speck on a grand canvas. A fruit fly in an aircraft hangar, if you will. The grandiose landscapes and massive structures are beautiful, and the way they connect together creates some pretty interesting mental images of how the island could look. From an underground prison to a castle atop a mountain, this game features diverse and fascinating environments that leave you wondering what life was like before the events of this game. The sound work is great. Criticals sound rewarding, and the simplicity of the sound effects is somewhat refreshing. The music is wonderful. It all has a somewhat somber tone, but the way it's executed is just perfect. The soundtrack works amazingly with the environment to create one hell of an experience. Some levels even have environmental effects on the soundtrack. Distant buzzing in the morass of the banished, ticking in the clock tower. It all works together in a way that's indescribably amazing. Kudos, developers. Kudos. And now, for the bulk of the video. Gameplay. Sit down. Get a snack. Maybe a water bottle. This could take a while. But, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's talk about key mechanics first. First, death. Death in this game is very simple. If you die, you go back to the very beginning. Pretty straightforward. Next, let's talk about cells. There are these things. They drop from enemies. They're called cells. They're almost like a currency. They allow you to unlock new items and permanent upgrades to add variety to your runs. Blueprints. They drop from enemies. Of course, you have to spend cells to unlock them, but everything you unlock will continue to appear in subsequent runs. Reforges and Modifiers. Modifiers add attributes to your weapons. Damage boosts, debuffs, curses, etc. Not much to that. Curses are one taps. If you get a curse, you have to kill a certain amount of enemies without getting hit. Or drop whatever item has a curse modifier on it. Stats. You have three main stats that can be improved upon as you progress through the game: Brutality, Tactics, and Survival. Each stat upgrade gives a health boost and a damage buff. Stats and health scale by a certain percentage every time you use it. Critical hits! So, crits exist in most games. Dead Cells is, of course, no exception. Criticals work on a multiplier system. Some weapons have crits that deal double, some do triple, some don't even inflict them. If a weapon is capable of inflicting critical hits, it has a condition that has to be met in order for it to do so. Combat. So, Dead Cells has a very simple combat system. Most enemies take a few hits to kill if you take the time to upgrade your gear. Most enemies have high damage outputs, but, so do you. Now, depending on what items you use, you can attain temporary stat buffs slash debuffs. Some items will increase your damage output while lowering your defense, some increase your speed, some give you temporary health, while you, the player, can get debuffs. For the most part, they don't affect you. Debuffs will stack on enemies, and they can stack infinitely. It's only a wee bit broken, only a little bit. Mutations are modifiers. They have a significant effect on gameplay and are essential to the build system. And, when put together correctly, they can make you an unstoppable force that hurts swords. Mutations are divided into four categories: brutality, tactics, survival, and general, each correlating to a different stat and a weapon category. General mutations don't affect your weapons, but they affect gameplay in general, an extra life, or the ability to instantly execute an enemy that's below 15% health. Again, essential. And now, ladies and gentlemen, climb aboard the pain train, because we are about to talk about stem cells, very briefly. Stem cells are fun. They work similar to Mayhem and Borderlands. They increase the game's difficulty while unlocking more mechanics and items. At the same time, there's a lot of drawbacks. Increased enemy difficulty, sparse health flask charges, harder bosses, less forgiving hits, the malaise. Fun and not fun, but completely optional. So, healing. It's not complicated. You have a health flask with a set amount of charges that you can use per level, and each charge restores most of your health, if not all of it. As you progress in difficulty, the frequency of health flask charges goes down considerably. Use them well. So, now let's talk about your arsenal. After basic mechanics comes weapons. There's three categories, one that correlates to each stat. Again, recurring theme, I know. Can you guess what I'm about to say next? Pause the video for 3 seconds and guess. Maybe put it in the comments. You should, definitely. Okay, it's been probably 3 seconds. Brutality, tactics, and survival. Being as this is a review based on personal thoughts and opinions, I'm going off observations and not fact. That being said, brutality weapons are by far the most versatile. With easy crit conditions and faster attack speeds, they're a must in any run. Weapons like the rapier or spiked boot can be a jack of all trades and aren't that difficult to use. They usually inflict some kind of debuff and are primarily melee. By far the most useful category, in my opinion. Tactics weapons are mostly ranged, although there are some with melee attributes. As far as usefulness goes, they're the second most useful. Weapons that only fall under tactics often don't have crit conditions. Tactics weapons are meant to be used more with mutations and don't really work in tandem with a lot of other items. Let's talk about survival. Think big weapons, like really, really, really big weapons. Survival is shields and big swords. As far as weapons go, very little versatility. Survival weapons are meant for high damage output and easy crits at the cost of speed. Shields are useful by themselves if you can execute parries. If not, use Armadillo Pack. Alright, let's talk about skills. Skills are the next part of your arsenal. They typically work in tandem with your weapons and are an essential part of the game's combat experience. Powers. They're pretty fun. Most fall under tactics and are simple to use. They usually involve your character performing some kind of action that results in cool stuff happening and the things around you being damaged. Sentries. I shouldn't have to explain this if you've played a video game, but I will anyways. Sentries are deployables that automatically attack anything within a set radius. Sometimes they inflict debuffs. It's pretty simple. It's like a turret almost. It is a turret. Traps. Let's talk about traps. Not that kind of trap. Traps are also deployables, and they are also stationary, making them not very useful. Traps require enemies to interact with them before dealing damage, but typically have a higher damage output than sentries. Pets require very little explanation. You summon them, they fight for you. Some are ranged, others explode. But they follow you around and they will be your friend until the end of a level. They're very nice and kinda cute. In conclusion, I absolutely love this game. Out of all my reviews, this has been my favorite one to write and research. Not to mention probably the most fun to, play so I could write this. I know I say that about all of the games that I review, but I've genuinely had an immense amount of fun playing this game. solid 10 out of 10. The environment, sound design, and gameplay all come together to create a wonderful experience that stands out as one of the best games that I think I've ever played. Hi, this is me post recording. I know that I don't post a lot. I'm not gonna apologize for it. Um, but yeah, I will make no promises about uploads or anything like that. But if you did watch this, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, then why are you still here? I genuinely appreciate my viewers, even if I don't post a lot. Thank you for sticking around, anyone who still watches these. That being said, yeah, not much else to say there. That was the Dead Cells review. I've been waiting to do this for a while. It took me about a month to write, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. See ya.